Alright, so yeah, I'll get into it. So basically what I'm going to be doing is basically looking at how good melee units are in your traditional team game compositions. So of course your traditional team game composition has like an archer unit and melee unit, and of course the uh, very standard ones for each of those is the Paladin and the Arbalest. So what I'm going to be doing is I've got 40 Paladin here, and I've got 60 Arbalest on each side. And then I'm gonna fight them off against each other basically, and see how each unit does. And then I've got some other units over here, some other melee units, and basically I'm gonna put them in this slot. So we'll see how they do against paladins, basically. The arbalest will stay the same for this video anyway, unless I decide to look at range units a bit more later. Of course, the problem we run into is the paladin is worth a certain price, but some of these units, like the Keshik, it has a significantly cheaper. So I had to kind of come up with a way to analyze how, well, the best approach to analyze how many numbers I should use in order to work out how good a unit is, basically. So if I switch over the screen here, I put a bit of the maths here, which I went into. So I'm assuming that a villager is collecting 22 villages, 22 resources a minute, and every resource has the same value, and every villager you have is going towards unit production. Because the main problem you have is cost efficiency and pop efficiency, both inaccurate really in determining how good units are. So you kind of need to have a model which is kind of in between, and this is kind of the model here which I'm doing it. So basically the assumption you say is to say we want a 80 paladin economy, we're going to have 120 villagers doing that, and if they're collecting 22 resources a minute, then they'll get that much resources a minute, and that means that that resources divided by the amount of cost of a paladin, which is 135, will give us the amount of paladin we can produce every minute. So that's roughly 20. And then because we've got 80 population spots, because of course you have a 200 population limit, you can have roughly 20 paladin being produced every minute, which means you're going to have more or less your whole army recreated in 4 minutes. So for 4 minutes, for 120 villager economy, can remake 80 paladin. And then when we're looking at a cheaper unit, such as the Keshik, we don't need as many villagers, of course, to reduce that army. So here we're going to have 100 villagers. I used to use the Keshik specifically because it has a handy number of 100 villagers, which is easy to work with. So that gives us 2,200 resources. So you can say it's less resources than the 120 villagers of the Paladin economy. But then if you divide the cost, of course, they're cheaper. And we get about 25 a minute. And then because we've got 100 population spots, having 25 a minute is basically remakes the army at the same rate as the Paladin does. It's kind of convenient. These numbers actually match up completely. Some other numbers are a bit harder, so I just kind of estimate them slightly. But anyway, so basically, then I took the number of 80 here and divided by 2 for 40, which is the number of paladins we got on this test here. And so basically, we divide the value here by 2 all the time. So we got Keshik divided by 2, we get 50. 100 divided by 2 to 50. So we got 50 Keshiks here. And I've done that for all the other units as well. I won't go through the maths of all of them. Hang on, I'll just switch back to the other view. Okay, so I'll make sure I got all my players. Yeah, I think all my players. So I'll load a test scenario now. So we're just going to do. Why are villagers being created? Not quite sure why that is. We're just going to do Paladin against Paladin to start with. So this is basically just to show that. Okay, hang on. I know why that's happening. Give me 1 second. I need to make a unit over here. I don't have any units on my team. That's why I was creating a town center. Okay. Basically, we this is just showing that this test isn't rigged or any way or whatever. So like, there's nothing odd going on here. it's quite likely that one side will win by slightly. It tends to happen that one side will get snowball with slight advantage based on the pathing. But regardless, basically I can tell you this fight will be more or less even. One side will probably come up slightly on top. This looks like yellow's come up slightly on top on this one. And I can see the game speed up because I don't really want to see the arbs battle for too long. And we can see Green Union has basically won this, but only with a few units. The battles tend to like be slightly skew one way or the other, just based on the pathing. But basically, more or less, that's how Paladin vs Paladin's gonna go. So now that we've kind of got the baseline, hang on. Okay, I got messages on Twitch. Can we have an analysis of the return of investment from singing a tune versus read to yourself? Okay, Mr. Chris. Anyway, so what I'm basically going to do now is copy in. So we're going to have Keshiks. I'll try them out first. Let's put them in there. We do need to change the player to Tartars. So now we're going to have the same test, but we've got 50 against 40. But these are Keshiks, of course. So of course these units are a bit weaker, but they're cheaper as well. I'll speed it up with slightly. A few units are peeled off on each side to attack the other's arbalists, so you probably have to sit through the arbalest fight as well, just to make sure of the result. Okay, so we got more or less equal numbers here. Looks like the Paladin player has just won this battle, so but pretty close though. So Keshik's in a team game composition, maybe very marginally weaker than Paladin, but more or less about the same. So I can look at other units. Since I've already got the Tartars selected, I will have a look at Steppe Lancer, since Tartars get the best Steppe Lancer. So, I should delete a few of these units. They're actually more expensive than Keshiks. How many do I have? That must be, I think that's 44. Yeah, I think that's 44 units. Hey Jordan, welcome to the chat. So I got 40 Tartar Steppe Lancers, so sorry, 44 against 40 Paladin. And by the way, you can check that all these units have the same stats. And the arbalists still are identical, basically. But yeah, you can see, as you'd expect, Steppe Lancers are not the best unit. And yeah, and they got pretty wrecked by the Paladin. Don't really need to just sit through that. No, there's still even Paladin left alive at the end, so yeah. Steppe Lancer, not the best unit to use. There we go. Probably already gathered that. A lot of these most good players I'd have a good idea on, although there was a couple I was a bit surprised with. And so, might as well have a look at, I'll raise these ones first. So these are the Leitis, which are the unique unit of the Lithuanians. I do need to make sure I change this because sometimes some of the units seem to revert back to their Castle Age unupgraded unit for some reason. So that's why I'm changing this every time, just to make sure that it's sitting it right. So these units are slightly less expensive than a Paladin. They do require a castle, so I was a bit skeptical, but I decided to give them 2 extra units anyway. But even so, you've got to keep in mind that even though the resources are equal, you might have a bit more trouble getting these units out. We'll see how they go. They've been hyped up quite a bit as quite a powerful unit. Okay, so we just sit through the arbalist battle. So again, this battle looks pretty equal. Looks like the Leitis just won this battle, but I can go either way from my testing. So they pretty much seem to be equal to Paladin, more or less. Once you have a few more numbers, of course, you do require a castle, as I said, to get this unit out. Same with a lot of these units. So that does mean that you basically only going to get their numbers in late game probably. But once you get to late game, these units are about equal to Paladin. Of course, Lithuanians do get Paladin access as well, so you might decide that Paladin are better than this unit potentially, because you don't have to get the castles out. We'll just try next. We've got battle elephants here. I might have to raise these units first. Okay, so as you can imagine, battle elephants are probably going to do pretty well. What civil should we use? We'll use one of the weaker ones, Vietnamese. And I am going to change one of these triggers just because elephants are a slower unit. So we have to make it so they attack slightly slower. They start patrolling slightly slower, so the arbalest attack at a pretty similar time. I'll just read Twitch chat quickly. 60 Malay elephants versus Paladin with arbalest. I'll try Malay elephants actually as well. I wasn't planning to, but I will. I have to add a few more. I know how many to add though, because I did work it out. So there's going to be Vietnamese elephants. There's 31 of them, so even though they're quite expensive, you still get a fair amount when you're accounting for both pop and cost efficiency. And yeah, we can see the elephants are doing pretty dang well. There's how many of them are left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe 15 or so left. A few of them are injured, so yeah, about half of them are still around. So definitely a pretty oppressive unit against Paladin in the late game. Of course, they're slower and a bit harder to get out, but even so, that's pretty cool. I'll try out Malay elephants. Basically what I need to do for Malay elephants is they're just pretty much the same cost as Paladin, so I'll just add, hang on, where are they? There. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, I just need to add like that. Malay. I imagine they'll probably win, but we'll see. So we've got 40 Malay elephants against 40 Paladin. Both with 60 arbalists behind them. Okay, how many we have left? Maybe 10, 12, around about. Okay, so they should do a bit worse than the Vietnamese elephants. Which I guess, so I guess Vietnamese elephants and stuff are probably a bit better than Malay elephants in these sort of engagements. But you can see they still beat the Paladin. Of course, again, the elephants do have the disadvantage of, I won't bother bringing it through, you can see they've won there. Also the elephants seem to be going off in an interesting direction for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure they're doing that. But of course these units are a bit slower, so it's harder to get like reinforcements into a battle and that sort of thing. I'm not accounting for that here at all. But even so, to show that they're quite strong. I'll go to... I think people probably know what the result of this one will be, but I'll try to do it anyway. So I've got Persian war elephants. I think people will probably know how this one's going to go. Where are you Persians there? We'll see. I actually forget how many I decided to have. I think it's 21. 1, 2, 3. It's 26 actually. 26. Yeah, you can see they dominated pretty hard. Probably got maybe 15 to 20, just guesstimating, elephants left still. So yeah, they're obviously very much a power unit. They of course have both a castle restriction and a slow, and they have quite high upgrade costs to mass. So I think Paladin wins against. I assume you mean for a different one, or you're joking about that one. But yeah, of course as well, like you often have monks in team games, so elephants do have their disadvantages, but in a straight up fight, they are definitely a superior unit. So we'll try some different units now, which probably won't be as one lopsided for sure. I'm going to try the Boyars out. And they're more or less the same cost as Paladin, so I just did the same numbers. You can maybe argue they're very slightly cheaper, but I don't think it really makes a difference. Okay, maybe the Slavs. Okay, so this is Slav Boyars against Paladin Arbalest. Boyars are better against the Paladin, but not so good against the Arbalest fire. So we'll see how this goes. Of course, they recently got buffed to have an extra pierce armor. Actually, it looks like the Paladins have won this by a little bit. Actually, I'll finish this off quickly. I know why, actually. In my previous testing, this has been a bit more equal. The reason why is I forgot to change this back. Because these are not elephants, so I don't think they should have the restriction. Basically, the reason I changed these engagement lengths is because with slower units, what would happen is the Paladin would get reach them faster, so the Arbalest here would fire faster. So that's why I changed the distance they engaged at. But since Boyars are only marginally slower than Paladin, I should change that back. So units should engage mostly in the middle now, because it can make a bit of a difference, as you'll see. Go through the Arbalest battle quickly. Oh, that's really close. Okay, the Boyars actually won that one very slightly, but yeah, from my previous tests, I basically have this as more or less equal. So the new Boyars are definitely a lot better than the old ones. And since Slavs don't have Paladin as well, might be a decent unit to try in the late game. Try Tarkans this Paladin? Yeah, I have Tarkans down. We can do that one next actually. I have them somewhere. Yeah, here they are. I added 2 more Tarkans to the numbers because of their cheaper costs. Might just repeat what I said earlier actually, because I'm not sure if everyone was here when I was talking about it. I'll just mention again. Basically, how I'm working out how many units to use is based on both pop and cost efficiency. So we have, for example, here's the Paladin. That's how much 120 villagers gets, and that's how many Paladin you can afford in a minute, assuming every villager is working towards it. So that's 20 Paladin a minute, and then since you've got 80 army, that will take 4 minutes to completely remake all those Paladin, assuming that they died instantly at some point and you hadn't banked any resources. So what I did then, of course, is then with other units I just did the same thing. So for Keshiks, they're nice and easy because you have 100. I can do 100 villages, 100 army, and you see they get the same rate of reinforcements. And then I just divided that number by 2. So I get 40 Paladin and I got 50 Keshiks. So if I go pure cost efficiency, then Keshiks I think are about 60 or so. And pure pop efficiency, I mean, if you do like 40 versus 40, then yeah. So I think this is the most accurate way of determining it's based on the it's the most accurate based on a normal game, I think, because it basically takes into account the pop efficiency as well. Okay, I'll stop blabbing on and we'll test out Tarkans against Paladin. So I've got 42 Tarkans against 40 Paladin. Of course, Tarkans are better against Archer Fire with more pierce armor, but they have less attack and slightly less health. So you've got about 5 Paladins left over. There's a random Tarkan which stayed alive for a bit, apparently. Okay. Somehow the Tarkans won that. I might redo that one actually, because not that the Tarkans can't win, but I actually found this most to be equal when I was testing, with a slight advantage to the Paladin player. I'm not sure where that random Tarkan came from actually. It seemed to appear out of nowhere. Alright, the reason I'm doing these in 2 times speed is I have a feeling that if I speed it up it might affect the results slightly. Okay, so the Paladin's just won this one. I haven't done massive amount of tests, but I've done a few tests beforehand, and I found the Paladin usually won, but slightly. So yeah, the Tarkans seem pretty good. I still think Paladins are better, but if you're facing maybe mostly ranged units, maybe you could consider them. And I guess they're a bit cheaper on gold, so maybe they're an option. Of course, they're a bit weaker against halberdiers and siege units as well. But yeah, they didn't do too badly. I was actually a bit surprised how well they did. Where was I? I will do Konniks next, I think. So Konniks actually, they just lose to a Paladin 1v1, and they are worse against ranged fire. So we'll try them out. I have to make sure to have them as Bulgarians. I did one test without them being Bulgarians. They got absolutely slaughtered, and I was surprised. And then I realized they don't have the unique tech, which is pretty important for them. Oh, it's close. 3 on 4. Okay, the Konniks very just won this one. So yeah, this fight's pretty equal actually. This is the one which surprised me the most, to be honest, because both Paladin slightly beat Konnik 1 vs 1, including the melee unit, and Konnik takes less arrows to kill from an arbalest, so I was expecting them to lose, but I tested this a few times to make sure, and the Konniks usually are about equal. And I have a feeling the reason is because they effectively have two units, right? They have the cavalry unit and they have the melee unit once it gets back up. So in fact, what probably happens is a lot of the arrows are overkills units, right? So the cavalry unit might get say 60 arrows headed towards it, even though it does about 40 or something. And so a lot of that's been overkilled, and then you have the melee unit after that, which can get overkilled by the arrows as well. So in fact, the other lists are helping the Konniks more than they're helping the Paladin side. I suspect that's what's happening anyway. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Uh, we've done all those. So I'll do Imperial Camel next. Just making sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that's right. I have 44 Imperial Camels, since they're a bit cheaper than Paladin. Make sure the Indians again. That's important. Where's Indians? Going crazy. There you go. Sorry, paused a bit early and the fight was still going on this side. Alright, so you can see, speed up the Arbalist battle, but you can see the Imperial Camels won, but it wasn't absolutely massive, but still a reasonably clear victory. I might even run that one again, maybe? I'll do it again quickly. See if I get a similar result. I'm just running this one faster. Okay, so that one's actually slightly better for the camels, I think. We'll see, actually. Oh no, it's still quite equal. That was even more equal, actually. That's interesting. My testing the Imperial Camels tend to do about as well as the first test, if not slightly better, so I'm actually surprised this one was quite equal. I think it's just because of the distance, sometimes Arbalists take a bit of time to go between each other. But yeah, you can see they're pretty good against the Paladin. Of course, there's a regular Paladin. I think Frank Paladin would be about equal, probably. I'll just check these. Alright. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So, next I'll go to... I might save the Hussar for later. I'll go to Cataphracts. They tend to be they're a pretty cool unit, but I need to raise this first. Cataphracts are a pretty cool unit since they don't take any of their bonus damage from camels or halberdiers. But of course, we're fighting paladins, so that's not going to make too much difference in this fight. And I think most people would expect the result, which we're probably going to see. Most people would know how this fight's going to go, I should say. So Byzantine Cataphracts, got 40 of them. They're actually slightly more expensive than Paladin, but I just did the same number. Yeah, and as you can see, they got pretty solid, which you can pretty much expect. They're definitely not a replacement for Paladin, at least, well, in terms of the fact that they can't really fight Paladin or Archer units as well as other Paladin can. So still got about 10, maybe 12 Paladin left over. So yeah, I won't bother going to the end of that. I think we all know how that's going to go. So what have we got next? I'm gonna try the Hussar next. I think as well people know how this is going to go. Needless to say, I don't think many people expected Hussar to win. So I'll try Bulgarian Hussars because they have the extra attack speed, which is probably that makes them the strongest Hussar. A few of those actually went off early. That's not very good, is it? Well, hang on, let me change that. It's because they got so much line of sight. Why is there a Hussar missing as well? I've noticed this bug a bit with the editor. I think this is a problem with the editor that units seem to sometimes disappear. Either that or I just forgot to fill all the units in. Let's just shift some of these units back a bit so that they attack properly. That should work out alright. So we've got, how many Hussar do we have actually? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it must be, what, like 57 or something? I think that's about right. Since they're of course cheaper than Paladin by quite a bit, but of course they're also a trash unit, which means that they're not traditionally viewed as a unit which would be good in team games. Okay, there we go. They're fighting properly now. And as you'd expect, and these are the best Hussar as well, yeah, and they did not do too brilliantly. But I mean, they did alright. There's about maybe 15 Paladin left, but even so, yeah. Definitely not a replacement for a good Cavalry unit. Okay, so now I get back to units which probably have a better chance. We'll see, what have I got left? Make sure I haven't deleted any of those arbs. Regular Camels, and we'll go to the Saracen unit in a minute. So making Turks, these just normal plain fully upgraded heavy camel. So of course they have an advantage against the Paladin, but they take a lot more damage from the arrow fire. And I can say they actually did okay, but of course the Paladin still won. I'll get to the Arbalest battle quickly, because a few of the Paladin were fighting the Arbalest early on. So yeah, the Paladin side definitely wins, and by a little bit of a margin. You can see quite a few Arbalest still here. But it's still, I'll tell you this much, they do better than Cavalier, but yeah, they're still not a match ready for Paladin in your traditional team game compositions. So then, oh yeah, I should probably try out, because there's some swords which have better bonuses, of course, for their camels. So we'll try out Malians first, and they have additional attack on their camels. By the way, there's 44 of these units to account for their lower costs. Speed through the Arbalest battle. And interesting enough, the Camels actually won that battle, which is actually funny because I'll try that again. Not that it was not that I'm like trying to rewrite results, but a lot of my previous testing has shown that it's been rather, while it's been pretty equal, the Paladin have won a little bit. So let's yeah, how it goes this time. Maybe shouldn't be using that speed so much. Yeah, you can see the Paladin won this one a bit. It does tend to vary a little bit in the battles. This was more the result I was expecting, although maybe slightly less arbalest than this. I think in between these two results is kind of what I was more expecting. So yeah, I think the Paladins still have a slight advantage, but and of course you gotta keep in mind Malay and Camels do have a worse matchup against Halberdiers and Siege and that sort of units, but they're actually not too bad against Paladin. They're maybe very slightly weaker, is kind of the impression I get. And of course as well, you do have to keep in mind that often range units will get a bit more shots off on the melee units than they are in these engagements. So that can potentially be a factor as well. But even so, they're doing pretty good. I'll do Saracens. The Saracens of course have the extra health on their heavy camels. So it looked like it was more or less equal. And actually the camel arbalest one, but yeah, I have this battle down from my testing as pretty much equal. I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to think, did I even have Paladin's favourites? I have a look at my notes. No, I just had it as more or less equal. Again, there are some disadvantages to camels in an actual game, but you can see in a front-on fight with Paladin, the Saracen camels do about equal, so yeah, that's pretty good. Since I'm doing camels or Saracens, we should go to Mamelukes, which I think most people would expect to do a pretty good job. Since they're a good unique unit. They are a bit more expensive, so there's only 40 of them. In fact, should I even decrease that number a bit? I can't remember. I can't remember exactly how much a Mameluke costs. I think it's about, what's 85 gold, 55 food, I think. I can't remember, what does that come to? I can't remember exactly. But anyway, I've got 40 of them, I'm just going to stick with that. They are of course a bit harder to get out because they are a castle unit. And also they're pretty gold heavy. But of course they have the advantage of having a ranged attack. Also need to pause it instead of speed it up. Yeah, you can see we had about maybe 15 Mamelukes left before. Unpause. I guess you can see the arbalest battle. But yeah, you can see Mamelukes pretty good unit if you can mass them up with castles. Okay, so the cavalry units, I think I got about 2 more I want to try out. I'm going to try Cavaliers, and I'm going to try, Berber Cavalier and Berber heavy camel. Let's do Cavalier first. We haven't seen any Cavalier yet actually, and that's because they don't tend to do it so well. But these are arguably maybe the best Cavalier. Potentially Bulgarians actually had better ones, so I might try to test them as well in a second. Berbers. So they have Berbers have a few more numbers. They got 50 here because of their cheaper cost. Actually, is it 50? I'm trying to remember. 1, 2, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's 50. Okay. Is that really 50? It might be slightly too many. Oh, well, I'll just stick with it for now. So you can see these are the best Cavalier, and I think and the Paladins are still winning. They definitely have more Paladins left. And the Arbalest battle seems to vary a bit as well, so I'm pretty sure the Paladin already won that, but I did have Arbalest there as well. I might just double check quickly the number of Cavalier, because I have a feeling I actually put too many in. I don't think they actually should have 50. Yeah, is this already 50 Cavalier? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's 50. They should not have 50. They should have 45. I was wondering why this fight was seemed a bit wrong. Let's do this fight again. I'll just do it quickly this time, but obviously the result's going to be a little bit different when you have the correct amount of units. Obviously miscounted when I was putting them in earlier. So then you'll see about 10 or so Paladins left after that. Yeah, that's more the results I was expecting. And then I need to get rid of 10 of these units, I think. No, 5 of these units, and then we change this to Bulgarians, and these are the Bulgarian Cavalier. Whoops, not Burmese. So these are probably the strongest units strongest Cavalier per unit, although you do get a bit less of them. I think most people would have guessed how this would probably go, because they don't take as many arrows. I might even speed it up slightly. Yeah, again, there's about 10 Paladin left. There's like a Cavalier here who survived for a bit, but yeah. I guess there's like 7 Paladin now, but there was a few more earlier, so yeah, Paladin definitely won that one. Maybe the Bulgarians are doing a bit better than the Berbers, actually. And then last one I was going to look at was, for the moment, is the Berber heavy camels. So of course they have a few more of them. They have 49 heavy camels. Yeah, it definitely made no sense to have 50 Cavalier, because the camels are obviously cheaper, right? And they have 40 less of them than 50, so probably should change off being Bulgarians though. Berbers. Yes, that's pretty much equal to, you can see. I think the Paladins maybe did slightly better. Yeah, Berber heavy camels are pretty good. And again, the other less fight seems to have gone one way for whatever reason. I think the camel player is not really deserving to win that. It's just the way sometimes it goes. Fights are sometimes a bit unpredictable. But yeah, I think they're about equal. Maybe even slight advantage to the Paladin. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah. So yeah, those are all the cavalry units that I'm basically going to test. I'll go over some infantry ones a bit later, probably. I'm trying to think if there's any that I missed. No, I think I got all these. And then I made a bit of a list of the results I got earlier when I was testing it. So I should minimize that. So got that here. Got the victories were for the Persian War Elephant and the Battle Elephant, as you'd expect. Quite clear victories as well. And then got the Mameluke and Imperial Camel, which were reasonably clear victories as well. I think the Imperial Camels actually did slightly worse when I was testing, when I showed the tests before, than my previous testing. They're more or less equal with the Konniks. I have them down as a close victory. The Leitis Boyars, put them down as usually lost, but very close. Same with Keshiks. Saracen Camels, Malayan Camels, but they usually just lose. Berber Camels and Tarkans as well with a close loss. And then pretty clearly losing was the Cataphracts and the Heavy Camels. So they didn't do too terribly. And then obviously Steppe Lancer and Hussar, both pretty bad units for these sort of things. As you expect from Hussar, because they're a trash unit, but Steppe Lancers, yeah, they did not really perform particularly well, even for their cost.